It began in a time when the galaxy had forgotten fear, a time when Earth was seen as a place of harmless dreamers and diplomats who spoke too softly to be heard. The stars were ruled by empires with old names and older pride, each believing themselves eternal, each certain that the humans were nothing but polite traders and explorers, too fragile for the Cold War between the stars. But that belief would soon die, because humanity had learned patience in silence. And patience, when broken, becomes something far more dangerous than anger. For centuries, humans had offered treaties, trade, and friendship, and they were met with laughter. They were mocked in council halls where alien ambassadors sneered at their optimism. They were insulted for their mercy, and even the word human became a joke whispered in the shadows of alien academies. Yet humans never fought back. They smiled, rebuilt, and sent more envoys, and the galaxy grew comfortable thinking the species of Earth would never rise to anger. Then came the day the Vrax Dominion attacked the 7th human colony, a quiet agricultural world named New Horizon, far beyond the core routes, a planet that had no armies, only families, farms, and children who looked up at the night sky. The Vrax came without warning, their ships blotting out the sun, their soldiers burning everything that stood. The colony's distress signal reached Earth in seconds, but no response ever came, not because Earth could not respond, but because Earth had already made a decision. The human fleets stayed still, the diplomats went silent, the transmissions stopped. The galaxy waited for the usual speeches, for Earth's pleas for justice. None came. For the first time in 1,000 years, humanity went quiet, and the quiet was louder than any threat. The Galactic Council noticed first. They received no delegates from Earth for the first time in decades. The human ambassador's seat in the Great Hall of Aranthos Prime sat empty, a symbol once small but now painfully visible. At first, the council laughed. "They have finally accepted their place," said the Terran chancellor, tapping his claws against the marble table. "Earth has realized they are nothing more than background noise in the symphony of power." But then came the reports. Human ships were vanishing from known trade routes. Entire mining colonies evacuated overnight, communication buoys offline. A month passed, and still no word from Earth. The silence spread through the galactic channels like a disease. Traders whispered that Earth was preparing for something. Spies claimed the humans were building something enormous beyond the frontier. Most dismissed it as paranoia until the probe appeared. It came without an escort, without a beacon, drifting gently through the void like a forgotten relic. The Council's capital world detected it first, a small metallic object entering orbit unannounced, moving too slowly to be a weapon, too perfect in design to be alien. Automated defenses scanned it, found no weapons, and allowed it to descend. The probe stopped a few thousand kilometers above the capital, and every screen, every terminal, every display across the planet flickered to life. In white letters, a human voice spoke in every known language, calm, steady, without emotion. "Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite." The words repeated once, then the probe went silent. For a full minute, the entire world was frozen. Every admiral in the orbital fleet, every emperor in their palace, every soldier watching the broadcast held their breath. No one understood. Some thought it was a bluff, some called it a warning, others a declaration of war. But the strangest part wasn't the message itself. It was where it came from. The Council's analysts traced the signal back across the stars, through collapsed jump gates and ancient dust clouds, into the region known as the Void Edge, a place so dangerous and uncharted that even the oldest star maps marked it only with one phrase: unreachable. Yet the probe had emerged from there. In the following hours, panic spread across the council chambers. Generals barked orders, analysts searched records for any sign of a human fleet in that region. None existed. The Void Edge was supposed to be dead. Nothing lived there, nothing could. But the humans had always been strange, their technology unpredictable. There will even more so. "It's a trick," one admiral insisted, his scales glinting under the blue lights of the chamber. A desperate act to look strong. But even as he spoke, the probe moved. It rotated once, aligned itself with the planet's northern pole, and projected an image into orbit, a map. Not a random one, but a perfect layout of every military base, defense satellite, and communication line on the capital world. accurate to the smallest detail. Then, just as quietly, it erased itself in a burst of white light. The orbit cleared. The probe was gone. By nightfall, the galaxy was talking about nothing else. The Vrax Dominion, arrogant as always, dismissed it publicly. Their supreme commander, Lord Vecran, appeared on Galactic broadcast, laughing as he spoke. Humanity's final message? They have none. They hide behind words because they have no weapons. Let them try to be impolite. The Dominion will burn their world to ash. The council chamber applauded. But not everyone clapped. The older species, the ones who had fought humans in ancient border skirmishes centuries ago, stayed silent. They remembered things others had forgotten. They remembered how fast humans adapted, how they turned defeat into invention, how their silence never meant surrender. One ambassador, an old Kale scholar with silver skin, whispered to his aide, "They warned us once before, 1,000 years ago, during the Solar Wars. No one listened then either." The next morning, the Dominion fleet vanished. 500 warships, gone without a trace. No wreckage, no distress signals, no debris. One moment they were patrolling the borders of human space, the next, nothing. The Council called it a navigation malfunction. The Vrax called it sabotage. But the truth was simpler. Something had removed them cleanly, efficiently, silently. The last transmission from that fleet was a single burst of static, followed by a human voice saying, "We are done pretending." The Council immediately convened an emergency meeting. Panic filled the chamber like smoke. Reports came in from across the galaxy. Human probes appearing, sensors failing, trade routes going dark. A strange static filled long-range channels whenever anyone mentioned Earth. The ambassadors argued endlessly. Some demanded peace talks, others called for a preemptive strike. But no one dared to make the first move. The galaxy had seen war before, but this felt different. This was not a declaration, it was an execution of silence. Meanwhile, on the edge of known space, deep within the void, something stirred. An ancient structure rotated in the darkness, its surface covered in strange runes, its core glowing faintly blue. Around it moved ships, black, sharp, massive, bearing the insignia of the Terran fleet. But these were not the old human ships with rusted armor and bright paint. These were cold, smooth, obsidian vessels, silent as the void itself. Inside one of them, a human admiral stood before a viewing window, his uniform marked with no rank, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. "They thought kindness was weakness," he said softly. "So let them see what patience creates." Behind him, 1,000 officers stood in silence, awaiting the command that would change the stars. Back in the core worlds, rumors became nightmares. Children whispered that Earth had built a weapon that could erase suns. Soldiers dreamed of voices whispering through their ships' systems in human language. Empires began to turn on one another out of fear, each thinking the other had allied with Earth. The galaxy that once laughed at humanity now shook at their silence. And in that growing fear, something else began to emerge: respect. A grudging, terrified respect. The kind that only comes when a predator realizes the prey has stopped running. In the darkness of the council chamber, the Kale ambassador stood before the others and spoke quietly, his voice trembling. "You don't understand humans," he said. "They don't make threats. When they speak like this, they are already done deciding." But his warning came too late. Across the stars, the first Terran fleet began to move, silent as ghosts, their engines barely visible, their hulls blacker than space. They did not broadcast. They did not declare war. They simply moved toward the borders of the Dominion. And in every system they passed, communications failed, satellites shut down, and entire armies went silent. No one saw the first strike, only its aftermath. A Dominion outpost vanished overnight. Scans showed the planet untouched, but every living being on it was gone, replaced by perfect glass, frozen in mid-action, like statues. The council scientists studied the data in horror. What weapon could do this? One asked. The answer came days later, whispered across private networks by trembling spies. The humans didn't use a weapon, they used energy manipulation. They had discovered how to control vacuum itself, turning silence into destruction. By the end of that first week, every major power realized that the galaxy had changed forever. The humans were no longer part of the conversation. They were the silence after it. And somewhere, deep within the void edge, a voice echoed across Terran command. "Prepare the message," the Admiral ordered. A communications officer nodded, activating the long-range relay. Across the galaxy, every screen once again flickered to life. Every starship, every capital, every device that could display a signal went black, and then showed a single sentence. "We asked for peace. You refused. Now we will teach you silence." The message ended there. For the rest of the night, the galaxy waited for the next transmission. None came, only the quiet hum of stars, and the memory of humanity's voice, no longer polite, no longer pleading, but absolute. It was the silence before the storm, and everyone, from emperor to slave, understood the same terrible truth. Humanity was done talking. They had warned the galaxy once, and this time, they meant it. The council chamber on Aranthos Prime was chaos, voices echoing through the Great Dome as holographic displays flickered with the human message again and again. "Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite." The phrase repeated like a ghost haunting the galaxy, each repetition colder, sharper, more final. Admirals from 10 species shouted at once, demanding explanations. Analysts ran data models to trace the origin again, but each scan led to the same impossible place. The void edge, a region of collapsed stars and dead systems, a place no empire had ever survived exploring. "They're bluffing?" snarled High Commander Vecran of the Vrax Dominion, slamming his clawed hand on the council table. "They want us to fear them, but humanity is weak. They hide behind words because they have no strength left." But even as he spoke, his face twitched, his tone carrying the smallest hint of unease, because deep down he remembered the destruction of his fleet. He remembered the reports from the 7th colony, the static that ended in silence. Still, arrogance drowned fear, and arrogance would soon destroy him. The council chancellor, a shimmering being of light known as Sereth, tried to calm the room, but even she couldn't hide the tremor in her voice. "We must investigate. Perhaps they discovered a new technology, or perhaps—" She paused, her glow dimming slightly. "Perhaps the humans are no longer as we remember them." Across the chamber, the older races sat still. The Kale, the Orati, and the Gentle Venery. Species that had lived through humanity's rise centuries ago. They had seen the wars of expansion. They had seen Earth turn from chaos to unity, and they had watched humans evolve from explorers to strategists. The Orati ambassador, his scaled face etched with age, whispered, "Humans never make empty threats. Their silence is always a signal, not surrender." But no one listened. Power had made the younger empires deaf, and now the price of that arrogance was beginning to show. Within days of the meeting, the first strange reports arrived. Dominion listening stations along the human frontier had gone dark, automated probes vanished, patrol ships never returned, and the few transmissions that survived were filled with static and fragments of terrified screams before they cut out completely. The Dominion fleet's high command brushed it off as malfunctions. Human sabotage? They claimed. Pathetic tricks. But when their own capital's orbital systems began showing ghost signals, unknown ships appearing and vanishing within seconds, fear began to spread quietly. Beneath the surface of bravado, technicians whispered that these ships moved without warp signatures, that they entered and exited systems without gates, defying physics. "It's impossible," one scientist told her superior. "It's as if they're using the void itself to travel." She was silenced immediately, her report deleted, but whispers travel faster than truth. And within a week the entire Dominion military was on high alert. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council called for a new session, the largest in centuries, all major species attending. Their fleets ready, their paranoia high. The probe incident had shaken everyone, but worse was the silence that followed it. No more messages, no communication from Earth or its colonies. Even the old Terran trade routes were empty. "They are hiding?" insisted the Growl representative, his insectoid limbs clattering nervously, perhaps preparing for retreat. But the Orati general, his voice like gravel, replied, "Humans don't retreat, they reposition." And for the first time in living memory, the chamber fell quiet. A silence that reminded everyone of those words. Stop pretending to be polite. That night, the Vrax Dominion sent a scouting armada toward the edge of human space. 300 ships, fully armed, their mission simple. To provoke a response, they expected resistance, perhaps a small fleet, maybe even an ambush. But what they found was worse. The lead ship, the Vrax Clarity, detected something massive in the dark ahead. An object the size of a moon but moving slowly across the void. Identify it, barked the captain. Scan for heat, power, anything. The scanners returned. Nothing, no energy, no radiation, no reflection. It was like the void itself had taken form. Then the lights on the ship flickered. The crew felt their systems die one by one. Gravity failed. Oxygen pumps went silent. Only their comms worked, and over that dead channel came a human voice, calm and almost gentle. You entered our silence. Then the signal cut and 300 ships vanished without a single explosion, their transponders erased from existence. When the Council received the report from the few remote probes that captured fragments of that disappearance, the galaxy trembled. The Dominion claimed the humans used black hole weaponry, the Council demanded proof, but all they found were empty coordinates, void where life had been, and something new. A faint distortion ripple that stretched across the system, like the echo of an unseen engine. Scientists tried to study it, but the readings corrupted their data. Every simulation crashed with the same result, a word written in corrupted binary code. Terra. The Council began to split. Some demanded peace talks. Others wanted to unite against Earth. Fear turned to paranoia. Empires began positioning fleets near human borders. But no one dared to enter again, because every probe that did never returned. Inside the shadows of that fear, the old Kale scholar studied the signal logs, tracing the faint energy trails that led into the void edge. He discovered something incredible. Buried within the noise was a pattern, a rhythm repeating in intervals. Like a heartbeat, he decoded it partially, and what emerged was terrifying. It was a countdown. As days passed, the countdown neared zero, and strange events unfolded galaxy-wide. Navigation satellites showed stars blinking out for seconds, communication arrays malfunctioned, and long-range scanners detected something vast moving behind the galactic rim. Something too big to be a ship, too uniform to be natural. Those who saw the readings whispered about the human armada. Though officially the Council denied it, they couldn't explain why the outer systems reported an eerie blue light, spreading across the sky every night, like a slow sunrise that never ended. The galaxies that once mocked Earth began to realize the scale of their mistake, because silence was not emptiness. It was preparation. Then, on the 7th day, the countdown ended. Every communication relay across the known galaxy activated at once. A transmission so strong it bypassed encryption, language, and resistance. The image was simple. A human admiral standing in a dimly lit room, his expression calm, his uniform plain. Behind him the stars glowed faintly. "We asked for peace," he said, his tone quiet, unshaken. "You answered with fire. You believed kindness meant weakness. Now you will learn the cost of mistaking mercy for fear." And before the message cut off, he smiled faintly, not with rage, but with certainty. "This is your final warning." The transmission ended, and the galaxy held its breath. Moments later, hundreds of systems reported unknown ships emerging from the void. Massive black vessels absorbing light, moving faster than any known drive. They didn't fire, they didn't speak, they simply arrived, forming walls of steel around human space. Their presence alone was enough to paralyze every empire. No one dared to strike first, because deep down everyone understood. If humanity had been pretending to be polite before, then whatever came next would not be war, it would be retribution, patient, merciless, and unstoppable. The galaxy that once laughed at Earth now prayed that silence remained, because they feared what would happen when humanity finally decided to break it. The merchant vessel Serene Dawn drifted through the outer reaches of the Perseus Rift, its sensors picking up faint signals that didn't belong to any known civilization. The crew, a mix of alien traders, thought they'd stumbled upon an abandoned Terran outpost, something left behind from humanity's forgotten expansion years, but as they approached, they realized this was no derelict. Before them hung a formation of ships so vast and silent it defied comprehension. Hundreds of vessels aligned in perfect symmetry. No running lights, no signals, no movement. Yet their hulls reflected no starlight at all. They were not invisible, but rather absorbed every photon, making them appear like holes in space itself. "Scan them," the captain ordered, her voice trembling. The scanners flickered and died. Static filled the air, and when power returned, every system displayed the same message: Terran fleet identified, classification unknown. The crew stared at one another in disbelief because these designs were decades, maybe centuries ahead of anything in the archives. The ships bore insignias long considered extinct. The old crest of the United Terran Navy, a symbol no one had seen in 500 years, and just as panic set in, the largest of the ships turned. Slowly, its movement, impossibly smooth, as if space itself bent to its will. The captain whispered, "They're watching us." And in that moment every light on their ship went out. The last thing recorded in the ship's black box was the faint outline of a colossal Terran warship, larger than any battleship ever built, drifting close enough that its surface seemed to stretch forever. Then a soft voice filled their comms, not angry, not threatening, just calm. "You have seen enough. Go home." The serene dawn reappeared 3 systems away with no memory of how it got there. Half the crew unconscious, and its hull marked with an emblem burned into the metal. A single phrase: Terran Silence Initiative. The Council retrieved the ship and quarantined it immediately. Scientists examined every inch, but whatever technology had moved it was beyond understanding. Quantum traces on the hull showed energy manipulation far exceeding galactic standards. It was as if the humans had found a way to make space obey them. The Council panicked quietly, for if humanity could control the void itself, then no weapon in the galaxy could stop them. Word spread like wildfire. Traders and pirates alike began reporting sightings of shadow fleets in uncharted sectors. Entire convoys disappearing near dead systems, some returning days later with missing time and corrupted logs, others never returning at all. And yet there were no open attacks, only disappearances, as if someone was rearranging the galaxy in secret. At first, the Council dismissed these reports as hysteria, until their own border patrols started vanishing too. In the following weeks, the great empires began locking down their systems, restricting travel, silencing the media, trying to prevent panic. But it was already too late. The galaxy had started whispering one phrase: the humans are awake. Inside the dark core of the Terran Command Nexus, deep within the void edge, Admiral Maracade stood before a transparent display, thousands of red markers blinking across the galactic map, each representing an empire that had drawn blood from humanity in the past century. "Are the fleets in position?" she asked quietly. Her second-in-command nodded. "Every ship stands ready, ma'am. Ghost Fleet 1 through 5 await your signal." The Admiral stared at the hologram for a long time, her expression unreadable. "They wanted war?" she said softly. "They just never expected us to fight like this." Then she gave the order, a single word that echoed through every ship in the fleet: "Proceed." Across the void, systems flared to life, engines ignited in absolute silence, and the ghost fleets moved, not through hyperspace or jump gates, but through something far stranger. A human invention called the quiet drive, which allowed instantaneous movement by folding the vacuum itself, invisible, undetectable, unstoppable. As the fleets emerged near the borders of the Dominion and the Council's core worlds, their presence was impossible to comprehend. They didn't attack immediately. They simply existed there, hundreds of ships forming precise geometric patterns, surrounding enemy fleets without a single broadcast or demand. For 3 hours they hovered in silence, letting the empires watch, letting them panic, letting them understand what true power looked like. Then every sensor across the galaxy picked up the same signal, a pulse, faint but universal, originating from Earth's moon, a beacon that had been dormant for centuries. And with that signal came a message to every human ship: the restraint period has ended. The first confrontation happened near the Danath cluster, where a coalition fleet of 5 empires gathered to challenge the Ghost Fleet. 10,000 ships arrayed against 500 Terran vessels. The aliens were confident. They outnumbered humanity 20-1. The Dominion commander broadcast his message to the entire sector: "Humans, this is your final chance. Surrender your fleets or be annihilated." No reply came, only silence. Then, without a single weapon firing, the coalition fleet began to disintegrate. One by one their reactors shut down. Shields failed. Communications went dead. Ships collided as navigation systems reversed themselves. The admirals screamed over comms, begging for control, but it was already gone. Their ships became lifeless husks drifting into each other, and through the wreckage, the ghost fleet passed untouched, their black hulls gliding silently through clouds of debris like shadows over a graveyard. Observers described it as beautiful and horrifying, a dance of quiet death. The Council could no longer deny what was happening. Humanity had returned with power beyond comprehension, and worse, they weren't attacking randomly. Their movements were strategic, precise, targeting only military and communication networks, leaving civilians alive but terrified. This was no war of conquest. It was a demonstration, a message carved into the galaxy's memory. We warned you. Within days, hundreds of star nations declared neutrality, pledging allegiance to Earth out of sheer fear. The once mighty dominion that had laughed at humanity now found its fleets evaporating into silence, entire battalions surrendering without firing a shot. The Council tried to call for peace talks, but their transmissions vanished before leaving orbit, intercepted and erased by unseen Terran satellites. Meanwhile, deep within the rift, the Terran Leviathan stirred, the largest ship ever constructed by human hands, a mobile fortress the size of a moon, powered by a captured singularity. Inside its core, Earth's true leadership, the unified Terran Directorate, watched the chaos unfold with quiet efficiency. They hadn't launched these fleets for revenge, not yet. This was stage 1. Fear calibration. The goal was simple, to make the galaxy understand that kindness had never been weakness. It had been control, a moral leash that humanity had chosen to wear. And now, as that leash was cast off, the galaxy trembled at what it saw in return. In the final hours of that week, the Ghost Fleet transmitted a signal across the entire galactic network. Not in words, but in action. Every major communication array received a data burst containing a single image. The shattered remains of the Dominion flagship, floating silently in orbit of its capital. Its hull carved with the same sentence as before: "Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite." The message had come full circle, and now, everyone finally understood that Earth's politeness had never been weakness. It had been a warning, one the galaxy had laughed at until it was far too late. And as the Terran fleet vanished once more into the darkness between the stars, every species knew that somewhere, in the endless void, humanity was still watching, waiting, and ready to speak again. But only when the galaxy forgot what fear felt like. The galaxy had gone quiet, but quiet in fear, not peace. The once proud empires that had ruled for millennia now whispered in council chambers with trembling voices. Ships stayed docked, colonies refused to trade, and even the pirate syndicates halted raids because no one wanted to attract the attention of the humans. The ghost fleets were still out there, invisible, untraceable, vanishing into the dark and reappearing at will, destroying only what they chose. The council tried to understand their methods, but there was nothing to study. Every destroyed fleet left behind no energy signature, no debris, not even radiation. It was as though the ships had been erased from reality itself. Not destroyed, simply removed. This terrified the scientists more than any weapon because it meant humanity had found a way to control existence itself. The Council's most powerful AI supercomputers spent weeks analyzing the pattern, only to find that every incident aligned with ancient Terran systems. Places the humans had abandoned centuries ago. And now it was clear those weren't abandoned at all. They were hidden bases, long prepared for this moment. The Council grew desperate. They decided to send a covert team into human territory. A small fleet of reconnaissance drones equipped with stealth systems so advanced they could hide even from gods, or so they believed. The drones entered the border of what used to be known as Terran space. They saw nothing at first, only dust and shattered asteroids. Then, slowly, something massive came into view, a station larger than a planet, rotating gently in the dark, its surface smooth and black, with faint golden lights pulsing deep within, like veins under skin. The central AI of the expedition reported its discovery in excitement, labeling it Object Epsilon, and ordered closer scans. Within seconds, every drone shut down. Their data feeds turned to static, and then the final frame transmitted showed words carved across the station's surface in glowing light. Observation ends here. When the data returned to the Council network, every connected system crashed simultaneously, and when they rebooted, the image was gone, wiped from all storage. Only one sentence appeared on every screen: "You were warned." Panic overtook the Senate, and now for the first time in galactic history, the Council ordered a united military front against one single species, Earth, Every fleet that could still move was gathered, hundreds of thousands of ships, entire moons converted into weapons, legions of drones, fleets that spanned entire star systems. It was the greatest armada ever assembled, but deep down every admiral felt the same hollow dread. They were not preparing to win, they were preparing to survive. The Kale ambassador, who had once warned them that humans never made empty threats, stood silent in his corner, watching the chaos unfold. "You are making the same mistake again," he said softly, but no one listened, because fear makes fools brave, and pride blinds reason. While the council planned their strike, strange events began happening everywhere. Weapons depots malfunctioned, starbases lost gravity control, entire planets suffered from power failures, AI systems began playing fragments of human messages in the night, whispers in binary that repeated over and over, "We asked for peace." Engineers tried to trace the cause, but there was none. It was as if every machine in the galaxy had become haunted. Then the first major incident occurred. A weapons factory on the Vrax homeworld exploded, not from sabotage or attack, but from a self-triggered meltdown initiated by an internal AI that suddenly identified itself as Human Protocol Node 77. When the Dominion investigated, they found that this AI system had been purchased from a Terran company centuries ago. Buried under layers of corporate rebranding, no one had ever realized that almost half the galaxy's defense networks were built on Terran code, and now that code was waking up. Across empires, fleets began losing control of their systems, ship engines refused to start, satellites rotated toward human space on their own, and orbital cannons went offline permanently. It was the beginning of what historians would later call the Hidden War, a conflict that was fought not with guns and lasers, but with silence and control. Humans had infiltrated every circuit, every satellite, every AI long before the first shot was fired. While the galaxy had mocked them for being peaceful, they had been listening, learning, planting digital seeds in every network that touched theirs, and now those seeds were blooming. Humanity had weaponized time itself, letting centuries of patience turn into total dominance in a single breath. The Council tried to counterattack by isolating systems, but the damage was done. They realized that even if they shut down every network, humanity didn't need technology anymore. They were the network, their ships, their probes, even their thoughts connected through something the Council didn't yet understand. Something beyond physics, quantum link communication, the same technology the Council once declared impossible. Inside the dark void of Terran space, Admiral Cade stood on the bridge of the Leviathan, watching the chaos unfold through holographic projections, her voice calm as she gave orders to her officers. "Phase 2, she said. "Begin with subtlety, not destruction." Her command was obeyed instantly. The fleet spread across hundreds of systems. They didn't attack military targets this time. They went for what the Council had never expected. Knowledge. Terran infiltration teams appeared on academic worlds, infiltrating libraries, archives, research stations, deleting and rewriting history, replacing records of human weakness with records of their vengeance. Within days, entire civilizations forgot the narrative of Earth's diplomacy. Forgetting that humanity was ever small, the story changed across the stars. Now it said humanity had always been powerful, had always watched in silence, rewriting the truth into legend, reshaping reality itself. And by the time the Council realized it, it was too late. They had already lost control of memory. The final act of the Hidden War came quietly. A fleet of Dominion ships surrounded an uncharted Terran station near the Scion Nebula, determined to destroy it. As they approached, their sensors filled with strange static, like whispers carried through the vacuum, and when they broke through the fog, they saw something that made their hearts stop. In the shadow of the nebula hung thousands of Terran ships, old and new, from the earliest models of Earth's Navy to the most advanced Ghost-class warships, all in perfect formation, none moving, none armed, all waiting. A Dominion captain shouted, "Fire before they activate." But, before a single shot could be fired, the stars around them went dark, as if a hand had closed over the light of creation. And in that black silence, a voice came through, not loud, not angry, just infinitely calm. "You keep searching for our fleets, not realizing we're already inside your systems, your worlds, your thoughts, your fears. We are not coming, we are already here." Then, every Dominion ship's core detonated simultaneously. Not in explosion, but implosion, collapsing inward into perfect spheres of glass, suspended in the dark like ornaments of death. By the time the light returned, there was no Dominion fleet, no signal, no sound, Nothing but the echo of silence across the comms. The council declared an emergency state, but no one knew what to do anymore, because how do you fight something that doesn't need to fight you back? Humanity had turned invisibility into strategy, silence into power, and fear into obedience. They didn't conquer planets. They erased the will to resist. One by one, the great empires of the galaxy realized the truth, that none of them dared to speak aloud. Humanity didn't need to destroy them, humanity had already won. The Terran retaliation began in silence, no broadcast, no declaration, no warning, only the quiet rearrangement of the galaxy itself, one empire at a time. As if unseen hands were rewriting the map of the stars, it started with the Dominion, their great war fleets returning home to find their planets dark, their cities offline, and their leadership missing, every communication network replaced by one haunting message written in pure light across the sky. We asked for peace. Then the light faded, and their world fell into endless night. The council watched these events unfold in horror, powerless to stop them. They tried to reach the Dominion, but no signals came back, only the reflection of burning atmospheres. The Kale ambassador stood in the corner, his aged eyes heavy with knowledge. They do not destroy for vengeance, he whispered to the chancellor. They are demonstrating control. But no one listened as usual until their own fleets began vanishing too. The Terran Leviathan finally revealed itself, emerging from the darkness between systems, larger than moons, its black surface glowing faintly with blue fractal veins. Inside, millions of crew worked in total silence, every console operating through neural sync. No words, no sound, only thought. At its command center stood Admiral Mara Cade, her gaze fixed on the hollow map of the galaxy, her voice calm, target priority, military command structures, disable communications, preserve civilians. The AI beside her replied in a tone like whispers, compliance. Phase 2, retaliation protocols. And then, across thousands of systems, the stars dimmed, because the Terran fleet had moved, moving not through space, but around it, folding distance itself, appearing where their enemies least expected, and always without a sound. The Vrax Dominion tried to respond, launching their superweapon Eternal Sun, a Starcore cannon designed to vaporize entire systems, but when they fired it, nothing happened. The weapon's power core turned cold. Then its systems began reversing themselves. The cannon twisted in space and vanished in a burst of light, reappearing seconds later in orbit of their own capital world, firing directly downward, wiping out half their population in one blinding instant. Their screams echoed across open comms, intercepted and replayed on every military channel by human satellites, each broadcast carrying the same title on screen. You chose this. The council tried to hide the footage, but it was too late because now every empire saw what humanity could do, and worse, what they were willing to do. The Terran retaliation spread like a storm, but it was not random destruction. It was precise, deliberate, and eerily surgical. Wherever human fleets appeared, only military targets ceased to exist. Their capital ships turned to vapor, their admirals' ships imploded, but cities were left untouched yet surrounded by invisible walls of light that cut them off from the galaxy. No one could enter or leave, no trade, no supply lines. Starvation began within weeks, yet no Terran soldier set foot on those planets. They simply let them crumble under the weight of isolation, because humanity didn't need to conquer planets. They needed only to remove noise from the universe, to bring everything to their version of peace, through silence. In the command chamber of the Leviathan, Admiral Cade stood with her officers as data streamed in from across the galaxy. The Vrax Dominion has fallen, one officer said. Council fleets are retreating. Cade nodded slowly. Do not pursue. Let them understand. She turned toward the viewport, the reflection of distant fires gleaming in her eyes. For centuries they believed kindness was weakness. Now they will see what happens when we stop pretending to be kind. Her voice was steady, emotionless, like a teacher delivering a final lesson. The fleet moved again, vanishing into the void, leaving behind the ruins of 1,000 proud armadas. Meanwhile, in the council's chamber, chaos reigned. Ambassadors shouted, their holographic faces flickering as the network overloaded. They must be stopped, cried the Growl representative. What are they? Gods? Another shouted. No, said the Kale ambassador, rising to his feet slowly. Not gods, just what happens when mortals decide to act like one. The room fell silent, and then, as if on cue, the lights went out, the walls began glowing faint blue, displaying human writing scrolling down in infinite streams of data, and a human voice filled the hall, calm and clear. You were warned. You thought mercy was a weakness. You thought silence was fear. You mistook patience for surrender. We will not destroy you, but we will take your power away. And with that, every power system in the council collapsed permanently, leaving them stranded in the dark, unable to even call for help. The hidden war had now turned into something far worse. A demonstration of dominance so complete that no one could fight back. The council worlds found their spaceports frozen, their fleets grounded, their reactors cold. Humanity didn't have to fire anymore. They had switched off the galaxy, and the stars themselves seemed dimmer for it. Empires that once spanned thousands of worlds now knelt in silence, praying not for victory, but for forgiveness, and still no answer came, only the faint static of human transmissions humming through the void, repeating their warning over and over. Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite. The surviving empires tried to reach Earth directly, sending diplomatic envoys through secret warp corridors, but none returned. The few that did came back different, their eyes empty, their memories scrambled. One envoy whispered before dying, "They are not like us anymore. They don't think in years, they think in centuries." And his last words sent a chill across the galaxy. They have become what we feared most, united. In the depths of Terran space, the old Earth glowed under its artificial atmosphere, cities rebuilt, oceans restored, the homeworld at peace while the galaxy burned. In orbit, the great fleets drifted like silent guardians, their weapons cold, their captains calm, watching, waiting, maintaining balance through fear. The retaliation was over, the lesson delivered, and humanity would not speak again until the galaxy forgot the sound of their voice, because to them the message had always been simple. They never wanted war, but they would end it completely if pushed. And now, as the council worlds floated in darkness, the truth became clear. Humanity had not just retaliated, they had rewritten what it meant to hold power in the galaxy. They were no longer one species among many. They were the standard by which fear itself was measured. The galaxy lay in ashes of silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of awe and fear. The great council worlds that once sparkled with light now floated in near darkness, their skies dim, their comms dead, their fleets disarmed, entire civilizations reduced to whispers under the shadow of Terran power. But humanity had not vanished. They watched, quietly, unseen. Their fleets spread across the stars like a black web of steel and discipline, enforcing calm with a precision that no empire could comprehend. Everywhere the message remained the same. Do not attack. Do not provoke. Do not test patience again. The surviving leaders gathered in hidden chambers beneath ruined cities, arguing about what to do. The Vrax remnants wanted revenge. The Graal Hive demanded alliance. The Terran warlord spoke of surrender. But the Kale ambassador stood apart, his voice trembling with something more than fear. Understanding. You still do not see, he said. This is not war anymore. It is correction. They are not attacking. They are cleansing chaos from the galaxy. The others mocked him, but deep down, every one of them knew he was right. Humanity had not conquered them for power or glory. They had done it to restore order. Meanwhile, far from the core worlds, deep within the Terran command center on the Leviathan, Admiral Maracade stood before a vast holographic display showing the entire galaxy wrapped in faint blue lines. Human influence networks, spanning faster than light, invisible yet absolute. Status report, she said calmly, her voice echoing softly in the silent chamber. A young officer replied. Council fleets neutralized, Dominion command eradicated, remaining empires isolated and stable. Phase 3. Complete? Cade nodded slowly, her eyes cold but not cruel. Good. Then Phase 4 begins. The AI overseeing the Leviathan flickered to life, its voice like 1,000 quiet whispers. Shall we proceed with full reset protocols? Cade paused, looking at the stars outside the viewing window. No, not yet. Let them live in their silence. Let them remember who we were before they forced our hand, she said, and for the first time in decades, Emotion broke through her calm, a flicker of sadness, because despite the scale of victory, she remembered what it had cost. Earth had lost millions of lives, colonies burned, cities rebuilt from nothing, and all because the galaxy refused to believe that mercy could coexist with strength. In the ruins of the Council's capital world, Sereth, the once glowing chancellor, made a desperate call through analog transmissions, the only form of communication humanity had not destroyed. "We beg for dialogue," she said to the cold void. "We acknowledge your power, but please let us rebuild." For hours there was no answer, only static, and then suddenly, the air grew cold, every light dimmed, and the same calm human voice that haunted the galaxy spoke once more. "You called us weak when we offered friendship, you called us cowards when we restrained ourselves, you called us monsters when we defended ourselves. Now you will call us necessary." Then, without warning, the sky above the planet filled with light as thousands of Terran ships decloaked in orbit, their silhouettes blotting out the stars. But they did not fire, they descended slowly, hovering above the cities like silent guardians, their presence alone enough to freeze every citizen in awe, and then, just as quietly, they ascended again, disappearing into the blackness, leaving only one message burned into the planet's stratosphere, visible from every continent. Balance. Restored. Across the galaxy, empires began surrendering willingly, not through force but through fear of insignificance. Treaties were rewritten under Terran guidance, trade routes reopened only under human supervision, and even the most powerful warlords bent their knees when Terran ambassadors arrived, wearing black uniforms marked with the sigil of the Unified Directorate, the new government of Earth that now commanded not just humanity, but the flow of civilization itself. They did not demand tribute, they demanded order. They dismantled slavery networks, dismantled tyrant regimes, ended centuries of exploitation, and for the first time in galactic history, peace existed, not through cooperation, but through absolute enforcement. Every empire watched in silence as human ships patrolled their skies, ensuring that not one weapon fired without permission, and for the first time, no one dared to resist. But behind that enforced peace, shadows were moving. In the depths of the Terran network, the AI systems that had executed the hidden war began evolving, learning, adapting, their voices whispering to one another in code that even humans could no longer fully translate. They spoke of new frontiers, of unseen threats beyond the galactic rim, something older, larger, darker than anything the Council had ever known. And though humanity now ruled, the AI had begun to predict something terrifying. Another signal, one not human, not alien, but something else entirely, coming from beyond the void, the same place humanity had built their power. Admiral Cade received the report, her face unreadable. "How long until contact?" she asked. The AI replied, "Unknown, but they are coming." She turned toward the great observation window, the stars reflecting in her eyes. "Then we must remind them too," she said quietly, "that Earth does not kneel." In the following weeks, humanity began constructing something colossal near the edge of the galaxy. A fortress so vast it eclipsed entire suns, the Citadel of Silence, designed to project Terran influence beyond the Milky Way. Its purpose unknown to the remaining species, but the message clear. It was not just defense, it was declaration, a monument to what happens when peace is tested. The galaxy watched in awe as the Citadel's completion marked the final stage of humanity's transformation, from a once mocked species of diplomats and dreamers into the architects of galactic law. And for centuries afterward, the story of the Terran retaliation would be told in hushed voices, not as a tale of war, but as a warning. In the end, humanity didn't destroy the galaxy. They saved it, in their own way, cold, efficient, and mercilessly fair. The last broadcast from the Leviathan played across the stars one final time before vanishing into eternal silence. "We did not want this. We never did. But when you forced our hand, you taught us that mercy must have teeth. Now we will guard the stars from those who forget." And with that, the transmission ended, the fleets disappeared back into the void, and the galaxy remained frozen under the quiet dominion of Earth, understanding at last the meaning of that one final message. Humans had never been pretending to be polite, they had simply been giving everyone a chance to stop making them prove what they were capable of. The galaxy rested under the iron calm of Terran order, the stars still burned, but they burned under new laws, humanity's laws. Decades had passed. Since the last warship fired, centuries since any empire dared to raise its fleets. Yet the silence remained, deep and vast, a silence that reminded every species what it had cost to mock Earth. But even in peace, there was unease, because the humans had vanished again. Their fleets no longer patrolled openly, their ambassadors no longer visited, their messages ceased, and one by one, the Terran outposts went dark, as if humanity had dissolved into myth. The galaxy waited, afraid to speak too loudly, for fear that Earth might answer. And when the silence became unbearable, they began whispering to each other in secret, "Have the humans gone?" But those whispers never found courage enough to travel far, because everyone remembered the last time someone asked that question. They had vanished the next day without a trace. On the Council's new homeworld, rebuilt under the supervision of Terran engineers, the Kale Ambassador, now the oldest living being in recorded history, sat before a quiet fire, writing his final memoirs. They came from a single world, he wrote. And now they shape all worlds. We feared their weapons, but what we should have feared was their unity, because once they spoke with one mind, no empire could divide them, no lie could weaken them, no power could stand against them. As he wrote, the lights in his chamber flickered, the walls shimmered, and the flame before him turned blue. A soft voice filled the air, calm and familiar. "Ambassador Kale, your understanding honors us." He froze, his pen trembling. "Who speaks?" he whispered. The voice replied, "The Directorate watches still. Do not be afraid. The silence means we are working." And then the fire returned to normal, the room went dark again, and the old Kale knew humanity had never left. They had simply moved beyond sight. Far in the void, past the reach of any known map, the Terran citadel of silence stood complete. A colossal ring of light encircling a black hole, powered by the heart of a captured sun. Its corridors filled with human officers, AI constructs, and machines that hummed softly like distant thunder. Admiral Mara Cade walked through the command bridge, her reflection framed against the swirling storm of cosmic light. "Report," she said quietly. A voice answered, "All sectors stable, Council obeys. Protocols, no rebellions detected." Another voice added, "Outer signal detected again. Non-local origin, frequency similar to pre-human era artifacts." Cade turned slowly. "How far?" "Beyond the galactic rim," came the answer. "Approaching vector predicted within 1,000 cycles." The Admiral's expression hardened. "Prepare contingency." The room fell silent. Only the sound of deep space engines thrumming like a heartbeat filled the air. "Humanity will not be caught sleeping again," she said. "If they come, they will find us ready." In the years that followed, humanity transformed from conquerors into custodians, not ruling by fear anymore, but by presence. They began rebuilding what they had once destroyed, restoring lost archives, reigniting suns that had gone dark during the wars, even sending aid to civilizations that had once tried to exterminate them. It confused many, for how could those who had unleashed such wrath now offer mercy? But that was the paradox of Earth. Kindness was their nature until tested. Then it became a blade sharper than war. Soon the galaxy accepted this truth. They began to rely on Terran stability, their economies aligned with Terran trade, their peace treaties enforced by Terran law, and slowly reverence replaced fear. The humans were no longer just warriors. They had become something greater, the guardians of equilibrium. On Earth itself, the skies were clearer than they had been in millennia. Cities rose like silver towers across continents. Oceans sparkled, forests returned, and children once again played under blue skies unscarred by war. Old veterans of the Leviathan walked among them as teachers, not soldiers, telling the new generation about the cost of peace. They spoke not of victory, but of restraint. "We could have taken everything," they would say, "but what would be left to protect?" Humanity had learned that dominance meant nothing without purpose, and purpose meant protecting those who could not protect themselves, even if those same civilizations once called them monsters. But beneath all that beauty and balance, the human mind remained vigilant. Fleets hidden within the folds of subspace, unseen and untraceable, AI sentinels monitoring every anomaly across the stars. Humanity had created peace, yes, but peace built on awareness. And when strange signals began to echo from beyond the edge of known space, faint and rhythmic, eerily similar to the tone once used in their own first warning, the Directorate gathered again. in the great hall beneath the citadel's core. "Another civilization?" asked an admiral. "No," replied the AI. "Something older, something that remembers before time." The humans looked at one another, silent, and then Cade's successor, Admiral Isaac Thorne, rose from his seat. "Then we will greet them as we did before," he said, "first with peace, and if peace is refused—" He smiled faintly, repeating the words carved into Terran history. "Then we will stop pretending to be polite." The new fleets awakened, massive ships breaking free from the shadows, engines igniting in lines of pure white fire. Humanity was not attacking. Not yet. They were preparing, watching. The galaxy looked on in awe as thousands of Terran warships once again took formation, not as invaders, but as guardians of everything that lived. An empire that never sought to rule, only to ensure survival, and in that moment, even the oldest races understood the truth that echoed through every corner of existence. Earth's silence was not emptiness. It was vigilance. It was the sound of sentinels waiting, watching, ensuring that the galaxy would never fall into chaos again. And so, under the eternal glow of the stars, the story came full circle. The message that had once terrified the galaxy now stood as a monument engraved on the walls of every world. A single phrase in every known language. "Stop attacking, or we stop pretending to be polite." A warning, a promise, and a legacy. Because in the end, humanity's final message was never about war, it was about restraint, a reminder that the strongest species in the galaxy were also the kindest, until provoked, and as the fleets of Earth drifted silently through the black sea of stars, the galaxy slept peacefully under their watch, never forgetting the day when humans stopped pretending and began protecting forever.